Hello, my friends and brothers and sisters, and welcome to my new moon party / Friday live. It's finally Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And it's more than Friday, my friends. We're upon a very powerful new moon. Very powerful. In fact, I have to say, as I start off here, first of all, great to see you guys. I have been off the air for some time just because life has been changing so much. And this particular Friday Live is a special hybrid Friday Live for Practical Mystics TV, because I have joined forces with Julie Day, who is going to be my honored guest here in a few minutes. And we are going to always host a little tea party, a little new moon party, if you will, right before the new moon for the Practical Mystics community. And because we believe in technology and simulcasting, of course, I'm going to also narrowcast it to the Namaste Today Club and the people that watch me. So hello to all the Practical Mystics viewers out there, and hello to all my viewers at Namaste Today. Now, like I said, I almost didn't go live today. And the reason is because I have been experiencing for the last 3 days now the most intense ascension symptoms that I have ever experienced. I swear to Goddess. And for those who are new, I thought this would be a good kind of opening topic, just because I want people to know they're not alone. Ascension symptoms is kind of like a buzzword that came up here. I think it came up since the Mayan shift in 2012. That was when I first started kind of seeing this. And I have to be honest, at first my ego was like, whatever, another excuse for people to be whining. I mean, that's where my old ego was about it, until it started to happen to me. And part of the reason why I think I didn't recognize my ascension symptoms is because I had this really bad habit in my earlier life, a year ago, to basically just ignore certain things in my body and trudge through it. I'm a step 18 Taurus, which nets to a 9. So I'm a very Aries kind of Taurus. And I am a trooper. I'm a worker. If I feel something coming out of my body, I push through it. And I forged through it. And that's actually how I have ended up in the hospital 4 times, right? It's because I have trudged through my physical symptoms. In fact, the last time this happened was, I don't know, about 2 years ago, last Libra. I always remember things as far as signs are concerned. 2 years ago, Libra, I started getting a chest cold, and I just pushed through it and pushed through it. Little did I know that chest cold was walking pneumonia. So I basically just kept getting sicker and sicker and didn't pay attention to it. Since then, I have learned my lesson, pardon me, Mercury retrograde, and have been very, very attuned to my body. In fact, the strange thing here is I almost think this is the perfect workout of the universe. About 2 weeks ago, I went to my local doctor here in Denver and had my spring checkup. And this is something that I do now. I have everything tested, all my blood, everything, to make sure that I'm okay and that I'm not ignoring any symptoms and that sort of thing. And I just went in for my checkups results just recently this week. And my doctor was like, everything is perfect. Your blood pressure, all of your levels, your liver, everything is just perfect. Your blood work is perfect. We're totally happy with this. You look great, and I feel great. Like I've never been in this good a shape. I haven't ever had this good of a routine of sleep and eating right and all this stuff, feeling amazing until yesterday. As of yesterday, I woke up from my sleep and I could barely stand up. You ever wake up too soon, like get out of bed too soon and like things get kind of blotchy and you're like, whoa, and you can't basically assume it's a blood pressure thing, which is what I assumed. So I kind of sat down and then got back up again and started feeling dizzy and having weird pulses and energy and having just distortion, kind of dizzy, kind of seeing spots, kind of having my vision do this without me asking, you know what I mean? And I was like, what's wrong with me? And the thing is I know I have a perfect health checkup, so silly me, what do? I go to the gym. You know what I mean? I need to get my blood pressure growing. So I went to the gym and worked out. The symptoms got more intense. And so yesterday I kind of just tried to keep it chill, stayed in my seat, and just thought, wow, it must be that I worked out too hard. It must be something else, that sort of thing. This morning, I wake up with the same symptoms. This time, haven't gone to the gym and having these weird dizzy spells and weird little moments of lack of focus. finally reached out to one of my good friends in Scotland, and she's like, "Oh, Chris, you don't realize everyone's having crazy ascension symptoms this week. Apparently, the sun's solar flares are going off like crazy." She also noted that a northeastern wind on Earth is like a symbol of it, a warm northeastern wind, which I've never noticed, except here in Denver, Colorado. We had like enormous warmth Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then last night it snowed. We woke up to snow on the ground in Denver. So the weather has been kooky as well. So I'm not surprised. I mean, in the astrology today, we're going to talk about the new moon that's coming up on Sunday. In my opinion, this new moon is one of the most powerful new moons we've had or we will have in an entire year. And if I were to think that one was to get ascension symptoms in any zodiac transit, I would say it's definitely in this particular new moon. Why is that? Because Aries is our ego consciousness. If you don't know, Aries rules the root chakra. The root chakra is how we are tethered to the earth, how we are attached to the earth. And so literally with this planetary lineup, solar flares aside, I'm not sure which happens which way. If the planets line up cause the sun to get pissed off, or the sun getting pissed off causes us to get sick. But there's definitely a connection between all these heavenly bodies. But in this new moon, we are essentially untethering from what I call our fight or flight ego, the win-lose ego, the ego based on survival. And we are moving to the ego based on thrival. So technically, we are literally untethering ourselves from the earth and connecting to a new ego consciousness or new intentions. And that's the most physical sort of spiritual transit that we experience in a year, is when we have an astrology transit with our ego or Aries or our root chakra. So I'm not surprised. And I just want to put out to you guys before we move on to our special guest, Julie Day, that you may in fact be experiencing ascension symptoms. Now, some of the symptoms, another one of the symptoms that's very common, nauseousness. People have nauseousness. They have weird things around their digestion. Suddenly they can't necessarily handle certain foods when they normally can handle certain foods. In fact, come to think of it, I did have a night where I ate something and I was like, what? That made me, yes, I did have a night where I had horrible digestive cramps, and I was like, I only ate one jalapeno. You know what I mean? Like, 3 will get me, but 1, So digestion issues, sleep issues, and that's something I've had all week long. I slept 9 hours last night. 9 hours. Okay. To me, that's incredible. I remember once upon a time, a good night's sleep for me was 4 hours, and I'd be grateful for 4. Point being, I woke up after 9 hours, tired, groggy, really unable to focus, not feeling motivated to do anything. And for me, which I would describe as a worker bee, this is weird. In fact, there was a couple of nights this week where I just sat looking at my computer, having no motivation whatsoever to do anything, literally making myself move the mouse, making myself, do certain things. So it has been clearly one of the most intense weeks I think we have experienced. And today in our show, we're going to talk about the new moon. And in our new moon party, I'm going to talk about what it means for all 12 zodiac signs, just so you're kind of clear on what your intentions are for Sunday. But before I do that, I want to go live with one of my dear friends and the founder of Practical Mystics TV. Her name is Julie Day. Hello, Julie.
Hey, what's up?
And I hear water splashing. Julie is in a very remote location. Where are you, Julie? Or if you can say to us.
Yeah, it's top secret. This is a very remote, private area of Lake Jocassee. Technically, I think we're in North Carolina.
Look at that. Oh my gosh.
I know. It's insane, you guys.
It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And we have a camping spot, and it's just us. I mean, look at these trees.
Oh my goodness. Beautiful. I love it.
Okay, so this
Ascension.
is a great place to, I know, this is a great place to be because I have been having almost everything that you mentioned. And I couldn't believe it as I'm listening to you. You just legitimized and validated me so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Because I was ready to go to the doctor again. Like, what have you experienced?
I have been exhausted all week, needing a nap every single day, getting long hours of sleep, same thing, waking up tired. And then just today, and I started to tell you this, and you said, save it for the show. Because we always want to jump right in.
Save it for the show. We start getting funny. We get funny backstage, and we're like, oh, hold on, save that joke for the show.
Today, I was sitting in a chair, just sitting. I wasn't doing anything. And I got lightheaded. And I was like, oh, gosh, okay, it's getting real. 44 years old, it's getting real. You know, I need to like start eating more apples or something like that. And I told Marco in the car, I said, honey, I think I need to go to the doctor. And I rarely go to the doctor, and there's nothing wrong with going to doctors. It's just that that's such a rarity for me to say that meant something, you know.
Yeah.
And Marco's like, okay, you know, we'll take care of you when we get home. And then I hear you saying the same thing, and it makes sense to me because I do something called network chiropractic.
Huh. It's
so amazing. If anyone doesn't know about it, Google it. And if you know about it, you're probably singing the praises and commenting in the threads. It's a form of energy work that brings all your bodies into alignment, physical, spiritual, energetic, mental. And it really helps any of, you know, when the spine, you know, tenses up around trauma in your life, it helps to unwind it so that you're aligned. And I work with a very powerful practitioner in Asheville. He's one of the best. His name is Dr. Brian Lum. And so he always has these powerful sessions, you know, or I experience them as powerful with him. But this one in particular, I got knocked out of my left brain. Like I could barely, like you said, I was staring at the computer screen, and something that was so easy for me to do was all of a sudden like Greek.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just said, okay, I guess I'm not doing that today. And I shut my computer and I went for a hike instead. So Mother Nature is one of the biggest healing presences for me. And I highly recommend that for anybody else that's experiencing that. And you're in a great place for that too, right?
I am actually. In fact, as I mentioned, yesterday I started having the symptoms, having the same thing as you. I was so grateful to hear that you were worried about a heart attack too. I was literally like, I need my blood pressure taken. Like, I think I might have an aneurysm. You know, like your mind goes to all these different places. But my intuition was like, no, you're fine. No, you're fine. Like, so I checked my gut. But yesterday I was having tons of symptoms. It was like summertime here in Denver yesterday with really gusty winds. We've had like fate-changing winds for the last 3 days. But what made me feel better yesterday is I went outside in the rocking chair and just felt the wind and just let Mother Nature soothe me. And she just totally took over the vibration and made me feel good. But this morning we wake up, we have snow on the ground in Denver. So it's super bipolar here. That's Mother Nature was not an option. And, and I was blaming Mercury retrograde too, because God, I have to say this has been one of the dumbest Mercury retrogrades I've ever had. I don't know about you. But there were times when I forgot my mother's name. Like, I was like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, what's your name? I know you gave birth to me. Oh. You know what I mean? Like, making silly mistakes and stuff. And in recordings, I'm just like, Mercury retrograde. But I literally could not recall things that, you know, you would test like a senile person or a president, right? Like, so it's been crazy. I mean, you know, astrologically, I think what's happening, I said this in the open, I don't know if you caught it, but I think we're shifting our root chakra kind of presence. Like, and that is our ego. And I called the old ego kind of a grounded ego. And I called the new ego kind of a winged ego. Have you seen in this Aries transit yourself shifting from one ego to another?
So much so. I've had, and we were talking about this before the show. I also think that the transits that are accompanying this, be it Uranus about to go into Taurus, Chiron about to come into Aries. And then you and I are the generation that had Chiron in Aries.
Yes.
So we're going to have our Chiron return. So there's just been a lot of stuff up. And what I've noticed is these ghosts, fear ghosts, that have popped up. And thankfully, you know, I've been doing my practice for long enough to catch them before they kind of take over or sabotage. But they've been real. They come up,
Yes.
they go boo, and I go, ah! And, you know,
Yeah.
and then I have to sit and like, what is this? What's the message here? Oh, and you said something, and now, what was it? You said, it was a phrase about something about getting the lesson, and you accidentally said get the message, and I thought, you know what, I almost prefer that. But do you remember it, or are we gonna
I don't remember
Mercury
it.
retrograde out? Okay.
I think we'll blame Mercury on this.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. So I had to be still for a long time to get the message. And thankfully I had the time and space to do that. And when the message dropped in, it was, oh, it's just a ghost. Oh, you're free now. Oh,
Yes.
you know, you can choose differently now. So yeah, how have you been experiencing it?
You hit it on the head there. I literally, every single poltergeist or ghost that I have experienced in life came and said boo. You know,
Whoa.
like every kind of like things I had, and also fears, like certain fears that I had kind of showed and like showed their ugly face.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my mind, like I was actually in the experience of it. My mind was like, oh, chef, you know, like that sort of thing. But then when I checked my soul, I'm like, we're over this. We're so not good. My soul, and I was like, wow, I'm really over this. Like normally I would be really pissed or really angry or obsessing or not being able to go to sleep because I was so worried about it. And I really don't care. And then I was like, wait, is that a problem that I don't care? Like, you know, like a back and forth. And then finally just listening to my own advice, I'm like, oh, the winged ego is like, screw this. I'm flying over this. Catch me if you can, bitches.
Yeah.
You know, that's my new ego. Like, and my old ego's like, you sure you don't want to be afraid? Yeah, go ahead.
I love it though, the winged ego, because it makes me think of these symbols that I love, like you know, like in Hogwarts and the Harry Potter and the little
ball. Yeah.
The little ball, whatever it's called. The golden snitch. And then also I don't think it's on Nike, but there's a god or goddess symbol where it's the winged feet.
I can't believe you said that, because that's exactly the symbol I'm using, like to represent it in my service, is the winged feet, which goes back, and to me it reminds me of the shoe symbol in Monopoly too. Like you could be the shoe, you could be the shoe. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that's exactly what I think of is the winged foot, that like we used to be grounded in our foot and now we can fly. Wow, that's amazing telepathy. We are in the same. We're in the same connection. And I do agree with you on the Chiron thing. You know, glad you brought that up. Chiron is entering back into Aries for the first time since 1968. Okay.
Whoa.
So Chiron was in Aries between 1968 and 1977, which means if you were born in that time, you likely have Chiron in Aries. Now, it did go back and forth into Taurus. So for those watching, you got to go look it up and see if you were in Taurus or Aries. But here's the thing. Chiron and Aries would mean that we have a wound, Chiron, where our ego went too far in a past life. And funny enough, we also have Uranus in Libra, you know, and you have a ton of energy in Libra. Yeah. But to me, it's like, that's our response spiritually. We're like, oh, I'm so not going to be in my ego this life. I'm going to totally Libra this the whole way.
Right. Yeah.
You know, but for me, like I've realized like in this last 3 weeks that most of my ego has been a defensive posture my whole life. And it's been a defensive posture against myself, that I didn't want to offend people. And I think offended people in my attempts to not offend people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Me too.
So like I fixed it till it was broke. Like this old ego like went way too far. And crazy enough, I had these revelations when the sun crossed over our Chirons last weekend. and didn't even realize it. In fact, it was the end of the week, and I'm like, when's the sun going to hit my Chiron? I'm like, holy shit, it was yesterday. I was just like, whoa, I guess this astrology really works. I really am thinking about it right during the transit. And by the way, that's what it's like to be an astrologer. Yes, you know all the transits, but you don't realize it till after you're in your head shit trip. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're like, oh my God, it authenticates. So yeah, Chiron moves into Aries again on Wednesday, which of course is tax day, which is really funny to me. That's when taxes are due. So filing your taxes. And I think because of Chiron coming into Aries, because of so many Chiron and Aries people, I think if you have Chiron and Aries, like you and I, you're ready now to completely heal this situation. Yeah. Like you're ready to be done with it. And I don't know about you, but I've been, typically your Chiron return happens at age 50, which is the, oh my God, I'm 50 crisis. But most people, whereas, your second Saturn return is 60, it's like every decade we have some major shift, You and I also went through our Uranus opposition, where Uranus has been opposing our natal Uranus, right?
Yeah, isn't that known as the like the midlife crisis, the like 28 to 42 or something like that? Yeah. Well, that was interesting, but do you mind if I zig back to some of the stuff that you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zig.
Because I was having this question coming through, like, when Chiron returns into the sign it was in your birth, is that almost like Saturn returning for the second time, where it's now you've healed this wound and now you get to live the story past that. You get to now move forward in your story. That was just coming through, but I'm not quite clear on a Chiron returns because I've never had to look at that.
Right. I've only looked at it because I have a ton of Chiron and Pisces clients who turn 50, and I was kind of coaching them and seeing them through. And you're absolutely right. I would say that up until Chiron hits the sign, you are blind to the effects of it. You don't even realize you're overreacting and over-responding. And, all my Chiron and Pisces people were all people injured by the church.
Gosh, of course.
So they were all born like in a heavy Christian or heavy Muslim or heavy religious families, at which point 25, they broke free, like Saturn return, finally claimed their own. And then they went to being atheists. And then they just went all over the map. And then finally like astrology. And then finally by their Chiron return, they're like, I'm cool with God. I'm just not cool with the church. Like, But I think leading up to the Chiron return, it's almost like you become an activist for your own wound. Like how parents who have their children kidnapped then go off and help other parents who's it becomes part of your legacy. Like whatever the wound is, you suddenly now are kind of obsessed with the Earth's same problem. And I find that the clients want to go help other people stuck like that.
That's interesting.
And become almost activist healers. My Chiron is in the house of wisdom, the 9th house.
Oh, that's so great.
Oh, well, you think so. Where's yours? Easier said than done, sweetie. Where's yours?
Well, I say that because, now you're ready to live beyond that wound. And it's just so great as that teacher higher consciousness belief matrix energy. Mine's in the 7th house. Which is marriage and partnerships. And, I'm so grateful to have this amazing, what I call a new paradigm partnership. At least it's new paradigm compared to all the old paradigm stuff I had before this. And it's deeply important to me, and my journey and my mission. And so, and I worked effing hard to get here and to have this kind of relationship. I read all the books. I did all the processes. I did all the breakthroughs. I, saw all the healers. Like I wanted this, especially with all that Libra in my chart. And, and here I am. And I'd love to be, some sort of assistant to those wanting to enter into that kind of partnership as well. I'd love to be a little helper.
Yeah, you're out camping with your partner now, so that's that's a very good sign.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get up there. Sorry, I'm ready.
Yeah. I'll hurry. So, so I think it's amazing that we can be live from some lake. You know, this is probably one of the first good uses of technology I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's great.
I know with Chiron in my ninth, the House of Wisdom, I started off wanting to be a movie director. And the reason was I wanted to teach people through movies, but I wanted to teach like people secretly. I didn't want them to know I was teaching them. And as you know, like I have to show them in entertainment. It needs a spoonful of sugar. Like, you know, I'm going to make funny sitcoms that show you how to live spiritually. And then as I healed, I was like, no, I guess I can call myself a teacher. Okay, I can call myself, you know, until finally I'm like, fine, I'm Sensei.
Call me Sensei.
And obviously, and I actually know what it is. For me, and we'll move on to the next topic, I know I was in the Crusades. I know that I killed in the name of Christ. I've had memories of it and stuff like that. And so, like, I felt like, you know, those people were ignorant, and you either went with what I told you was fact or you died. And then I think it got to heaven. I was like, oh, that's not really good, is it? Killing in the name of Christ. So I think a lot of Chiron Aries are the Crusades, killing in the name of religion, killing in the
Marco
name.
too. Marco has that. Yeah.
I think Marco does too. I think that may be where I know Marco. You know, like we might have slit some throats together. Say hi. And I say it casually now. But I also think, just totally interesting flip, the fact that we have terrorism, the fact that we have people blowing themselves up in the name of Allah and other, to me, to some degree, that's my own karma coming back, you know, like, because the Christians were definitely doing that too, once upon a time, and were there once upon a time, and felt justified once upon a time. So I think this is a huge ego shift. I think for me, this is the first time where I'm out of denial. I'm a teacher and I'm not killing people, so I did it.
Yeah. Yay, you.
And what were you doing? Poisoning your husband? I'm just curious. I want to make it dark like me.
Oh no, I was the Cancer Stepford wife. I know that I've been kowtowing to men or to people in authority probably for lifetimes, and a lot of my curriculum was emerging from codependency, unwinding this overblown sense of responsibility that your happiness is my job.
Right.
That your ability to process whatever's going on is my job. And so that's gone now. And you know, the little ghosts that emerged over this weekend were that you know, because Marco and my relationship is largely just really harmonious, this ghost that if I was in an off space that I was bad or I was wrong or that I was doing something wrong and I needed to do everything I could to get back into that love bubble, you know, kind of space. And after I sat with it for a while, I was like, oh no, actually the beauty of our partnership is it's large enough to hold all the colors. And so I get to go off into the woods. I get to be my own self and be my own sovereign being. And I might be preaching to the choir here with some of the people in your audience, but who might, you know, have that already. But it was a revelation for me to wake up to that and realize that I'm in a new ego space. You know, it's a new deal.
Yeah, it is a new deal. And the thing about ego is this, where we get our center of strength from. So it's, and I think that's part of the ascension sickness. It's very, it's very unsettling to change your definition of what makes you strong. And I think for me, it was like, I'm strong because I'm right. Yeah. You know, like I'm strong because I have the answer. I'm strong. And now it's like, I'm strong because I take care of me. That's why I'm strong. I'm strong because I go to the gym. I'm strong because I eat well. You know, like it completely shifted. Yeah.
And I think mine was, I'm strong because I can help you. I'm strong because I can show up for you, you know? And it's like, oh, I'm strong because, period, end of sentence.
Yes, exactly. I am. I mean, and that's actually it. I think you just said it. Like, I think the old grounded ego, when I say old grounded, I'm also speaking for the whole population of the earth. You know, I think we've held this kind of ego since before Christ. You know, I think to some degree, and I think that ego is I am adjective or I am adverb, right? Like And it's like, so I am strong, I am this, I am white, I am Jewish, I am Christian. And now I think the new ego is I am.
Yeah.
That's it. I am.
I love it.
That's
I
all.
am consciousness. Yeah.
We're just here to be. That's all we're here to be. Not be anything, just be, which I'm still grappling my head around. I imagine between now and turning 50, that's going to be what I figure out more precisely.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long. Mercury retrograde, been spacey for you. You already kind of affirmed that. Yes? Oh, yeah. You got to get to the water.
Yeah, definitely been spacey.
I know Mercury's retrograde, but even so, tell us what little changes you're making in Practical Mystics TV.
That's so great. Right. Because the last time that we had our new moon party was before Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
So, so there have been so many changes, and that's been largely my Mercury retrograde is reviewing, rewiring, realigning. And we started out as a subscription room, and we're taking that off now, and we're just allowing our content to be free. So anybody can come and join. You just have to give us an email. That's it. And you can enjoy the content. You can play with us. And we're growing and we're learning as we go along. So we don't have it, perfect, and probably never will be. It'll be perfectly imperfect, which I love. And then, we're all teachers over there, and so we're going to start producing these little mini courses that we're calling like albums or higher knowledge playlists. So if you need a little bit of extra help for the month, we'll have that available. And if you don't want it, you don't have to go for it. So, that's what we're doing. Yay.
I love it. I call them conscious albums. I'm not going to try to brand you, but it's great because your first conscious album is basically a bunch of your teachers all doing little song mini segments on abundance and self-esteem for Taurus, right?
Abundance and self-worth. Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I think it's amazing because nobody buys albums anymore, just the song. So, you know what I mean? So you're reviving here. Yeah.
We're reviving, and they feel like opportunities to, a lot of our audience is the millennial generation. And even if you're not a millennial, technically, I do think that there's a lot of people out there right now that don't have the time or the budget to find a therapist, don't have the time or budget for a 12-week online course.
Yeah.
And yet they're hungry for the knowledge, and they want to go to people that they can trust and people that they vibe with. And so what does it look like to work on abundance over a weekend? What does it look like to work on self-worth over 7 days? And to really allow yourself to
grow quickly.
That's exactly what I was going to say. To know that it doesn't have to be a slog anymore. I mean, we're at the dawn of the age of Aquarius. It's getting faster and faster. And just to give yourself permission to evolve quickly. Yeah.
100% agree with you. And I think a lot of people, I think that's part of the old ego, by the way.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's to come full circle. I think the old ego is, well, I made a segment myself about this. Like the old ego calls everything hard.
Yeah.
Because everything is fight or flight. So it's going to be hard. It's going to take years. Don't think you can get it overnight, kid.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And it's like, I don't. So I just kept quiet. Like I learned that on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I was like, I always thought, I guess I'm talented. It's like, no, you are ascending, which means that you can learn super fast and you don't play by the old rules. So I think it's super smart. So you're going to have a conscious album. When does your conscious album come out?
It'll come out in Taurus. So what is Taurus, the 19th or the 20th or the?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So it'll be out then. We're putting the finishing touches on it.
Taurus is in 420, baby.
That's a good way to remember it.
Because I think it's hilarious with holidays. It's like the indulgent holiday. I mean, Taurus is indulgent, so it makes total sense. All right. And so people, are the doors open or are you waiting till Mercury direct? Okay. So people can, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. People can come and request to join Practical Mystics TV. It's a Facebook group. You can friend me too, and you'll find it very easily. You can friend Christopher, you'll find it very easily. And all you have to do is drop in your email. We have a little question that allows you to do that, and that's it. And then you're in, and you can just sit back and observe and play.
Awesome. Well, I invite everyone to come over and check out Practical Mystics TV. I'm a
You're
part
so
of this
kind.
because, well, it's a pleasure to, and we've been doing this for a long time, sister.
Yes,
Like,
yes, we have.
it's been 12 years for me. And honestly, over those years, there's very few people that actually, in my opinion, have their thumb on the ball. And one thing about Julie is she knows all those people. So you're not wasting any time in practical mystics. Like every mystic that you have is interesting and compelling. And I love Marco, your partner too. I think he's amazing too. So
thank you.
I invite everyone to try it. Have a happy new moon, my friend. Enjoy your camping trip. Thank you for taking the time out from the woods.
Oh my gosh, of course.
I love it.
Oh my
and you
gosh,
look fabulous. You got the sun hat.
Okay, I love you. Everyone have a wonderful full moon. I mean, new moon. That feels like a full moon. Okay, bye.
Bye, Julie. Well, that went super well. Love Julie Day, one of my oldest friends on the earth. And, you know, one of the things that's been interesting is, like, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but Julie and I go back to past lives, and we've been having little memories and stuff. Like, it's not just teachers coming together in this life. A lot of us who've been pushing for enlightenment have been working on this topic for centuries. And that's one of the camaraderie Julie and I have, is we've been working on that. We've been helping humans for a long time in our own way. So let's move on now to our next topic, which is the Sunday new moon. We have a new moon on Sunday. This is a very powerful new moon. I actually recorded a Namaste today, at the beginning of this week. So if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I put a lot of time and energy into those to kind of go into some of the deeper depths of what it means for each of the 12 signs. Today, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to talk a little more technical about some of the conscious fronts that are shifting on this new moon. First of all, the new moon will apex around 10 p.m. Eastern, which would be 7 p.m. Pacific. So it actually happens Sunday night. In fact, I think a lot of Sunday is actually a step 25 day. So we just happen to have a very spiritual and holy Sunday in the beginning of the day. And that means, I think, although you may be dead certain about what your new moon issue is and what you're committing to, Sensei says it may not happen till right before you go to bed. You may not be fully clear. One thing I've noticed about God consciousness is she doesn't waste any time. There's no time. You may think you're waiting for something to happen, but if you're waiting for something to happen, there's something you're not doing. There's something you're not processing. There's something you're not paying attention to. So I have found, I used to think that life could be very boring until I realized there were things I was supposed to be learning or paying attention to. So there's a lot of conscious fronts that are shifting right now. And the biggest front is what I have outlined so far, is that your root chakra, which is your root motive. That's why it's so important, right? Our root motive on earth has been to survive. That's our root motive, right? All of us have been born into this root motive. Right now, there's a lot of people in Congress and politics and business and commercials who keep pushing this old root motive for you to survive, just hoping you can survive, trying to survive with this medical condition, trying to survive in this income, trying to survive as an African American or as an American Indian or as an Asian American, trying to survive as this, trying to survive as that. And they're still pushing that narrative. In fact, what you're going to start to see, in my opinion, from this week forward is a new alternative narrative starting to birth, while we have these other factions that are trying to get us to re-up with the old narrative. So the old narrative was survival, okay? I believe the new narrative is thrival. That's the best way to put it. Another way to put it is, the old narrative is somebody wins, somebody loses. The new narrative is both people win. And I think that's the way God consciousness works, is win-win. There's always a win-win. If you can't find a win-win in a scenario, you're not very creative. You're not connected to your heart. And you're not very smart either. I'm just going to put it out there. If you can't find a win-win, you're not trying hard enough. Because I have found it is always there. Now, there's not a lot of evidence of it. You're not going to find a lot of evidence in research. The earth hasn't been practicing win-win for 26,000 years. So you will be alone in the sense that you're looking for the win-win. You will be unique that you're looking for the win-win. You will stand out. You may not be supported. All these things are true. Okay, so when you find the win-win, you are a new age human being. You are part of the ascension, let's say, team. And I believe there's a team of people on the planet. When I say team, I mean 2 to 10 million, okay, who are all here to actually enlighten and carry enlightenment to the next step. Have you noticed that it hasn't been since Jesus Christ that God talked to any humans? You know what I mean? Like, humans have claimed, but we said they were crazy. We have lost our official communication with higher self over the centuries. And I think this new generation, this new ego, basically is the birth of a whole new movement. And it is a movement because it's Aries, it's action energy, and this movement is win-win. So the movement starts in you. It starts with you, exclusively by you. And I described a little bit, speaking to Julie, it's like my old ego had the intention that I had to show everyone I was right. I had to prove that I knew my knowledge. I had to, all these things. My ego was all based on something outside of me. All my actions were based on something outside of me. I believe the new winged ego, as I put it, is always based on something inside of you. And the winged ego, in my opinion, is aware that what we be is what we attract, law of attraction. So if law of attraction is the fundamental law of the universe and of consciousness, why are we focusing on what we attract? We should be focusing on what does the attracting, which is us. So I think this is the change that has taken 3 weeks. As I said with Julie, a lot of my old ghosts came up and offered me, even right before I went live, an old ghost popped up. It's just like, you sure you don't want to worry about this old thing anymore? No. All right. And I think that when I'm going back to the new moon, you will probably be still doing spiritual surgery on yourself all the way up till 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, where you are splitting hairs between the new winged ego reaction and the old grounded ego reaction. So you're kind of separating and splitting hairs. And it's very, very, some of the conscious work is very, very subtle. It's as subtle as feeding yourself before you feed all your cats, okay, in the morning. Putting yourself first. Putting the attractee, the one that does the attracting, putting the actual element does the attraction, putting it first before the cats that were drawn to you wanted food. Okay, so it's very, very subtle. It's in the smallest things. Remember, small things make big things. And so between now and Sunday, I think you must be very, very conscious. Now, one of the things leading up is today Mercury has retrograded to step 4 Aries. Step 4 is an unstable step. I think it's one of the reasons why I've been experiencing more ascension sickness in the last 24 hours. Mercury went to step 4. I'm literally having it in my brain. And what this means is you're probably going to usurp an entire attitude that your mind has been taking to support the old ego. So our mind comes from an assumption, and our mind is a co-conspirator to the ego. The mind and ego work together. I call the mind the smartass. I call the ego the dumbass. Okay, the two of them are drinking buddies. In fact, those are the two that usually draw people to drink, is the ego and the mind. One of the two brings you to the bar and has you just start to escape life rather than face life. These co-conspirators, it's the mind. Your ego may know the right thing to do. Your ego may know the right action to take. And what I'm saying is the mind is still catching up. You'll probably find that your mind is still arguing. Your mind is still doubting. In fact, even in my little ghosts that came up over the last 2 weeks, my ego was calm, but my mind was like, are you going to let them get away with that? Are you sure that's going to be the way it is? Like, my mind was still talking the old fight, still talking the old talk. But I saw it, I witnessed it, and I was able to at least be aware that this is how it's been operating inside of me since the dawn of time. So between now and Sunday, I would say expect to change your mind. you may discover that you've been coming at your life completely from the wrong perspective. So giving you an example of this, it's like if you have a childhood where your parents are violent, let's say, and beat you and spank you and domestic violence with each other, your mind might have come to the conclusion that life is violent, that you have to protect yourself always because life is violent and you could be hurt at any time. That perspective, that mental perspective that life is violent, creates an ego that makes you extra aggressive, extra protective, perhaps it justifies preemptive striking, okay, which is what our justification was in Iraq. We're going to strike them before they can strike anyone else. And they were wrong about the weapons of mass destruction, by the way. Just saying that because we have the same thing going on again, alleged weapons of mass destruction. But the point is having this mental position, this assumption, this attitude, this is the last mile, in my opinion, of this spiritual work of Mercury retrograde and the new moon in Aries, that the mind must come to realization. In my case, I'll share, it's that I have nothing to prove. My heart wants to share. My heart wants to share. I have nothing to prove. I don't have to prove to anybody that I'm right. I don't owe anybody anything. And before, my old ego felt like I owed people. I had to do it. I had to show up. It was my karmic debt. And that's partly due to my Chiron in Aries. But I think everyone has a Chiron somewhere. Everyone feels a karmic debt somewhere. Everyone probably developed an ego growing up based on their karmic debt, thinking that they have to do something, have to prove something, have to show something. And the question is, says who? The answer is, says you. And that's what's going to change. It's time to change that assumption in our mind and change our minds about things. Now, there's also another interesting kind of conscious pattern going on this weekend is Chiron is at step 29 Pisces. I was talking about that with Julie. Chiron moves to Aries on Wednesday, tax day, which is funny to me. It's like, yeah, pay your taxes, Chiron. And but the point of Chiron at 29 Pisces is we just spent years with Chiron and Pisces fixing our faith. So I would say almost the entire Lightwalker Enlightenment movement that I have seen since I started this, which was 12 years ago, I started going on the net and doing horoscopes and trying to help people enlighten and try to help people's spirituality. This whole time has been Chiron and Pisces. And we have been, I don't know if Chiron was in Aquarius when I started, but we have been working to heal our spiritual faith. And so we can probably all speak to miracles and moments when prayers were heard and things turned out fine. Well, with Chiron at 29 degrees this whole weekend, this is your final test of faith. And that means that, like I said to Julie, it's like my mind wanted to think that my ascension symptoms was a medical problem, even though I had medical evidence that it wasn't. My ego wanted to say there was a problem, fight or flight, something could be going wrong. But what carried me through was my own sense of faith. My spirit was like, nope, everything's fine. And being able to trust that quiet voice in me, that everything is fine. That's the test of faith. I believe you will hear inside yourself that everything's fine. Whether you trust that voice inside of you is your test of faith. And I would think that the entire world's faith will be tested until next Wednesday, at which point we move on to another topic. Mercury is conjoining Chiron at step 29 at step 4. They're only 5 degrees apart, which is the number of Mercury. So what that means is whatever this new attitude is, this new position, like maybe I don't have to assume the world is violent. Maybe I don't owe the world anything. Maybe I'm just fine being me and my gifts are that. They're gifts. They're not debts being paid. But part of that mental new approach is this faith involved, that the mind is considering the faith or considering the spiritual message that we're getting inside too. So I think part of the new mind going forward is you can't just look at the evidence. All right. And this is a whole nother discussion we'll get into at another time. You can't just look at the evidence. You got to look at what you feel on the inside and what your intuition tells you on the inside. And my guides are telling me right now to just go ahead and bring this up, This recent gas attack in Syria, I know what the evidence says. My gut tells me something is not right and we're being lied to somewhere. I don't know where it is, but my gut tells me something ain't right. Okay? Something else is going on despite the facts. So this new ego has to have other conscious involvement than just the ego itself. This new ego, this winged ego, can't just rely on what your brain says are the facts. The new ego needs to check your feelings. The new ego needs to check your intuition. The new ego needs to check your heart, which is very important too. Part of what this is going to be about too is facing fears. Mars is on top of Black Lilith. Mars will be at step 16 on the new moon. Black Lilith is at step 17. What this means is if you have any fear around commitment, making the wrong choice, reporting to the wrong leader, following the wrong messiah, any kind of fear about leadership and false leadership, you likely will have to face that fear. And that fear would be based on the past, based on mistakes in the past, based on what you've experienced in the past. And that's the whole point of the enlightened new winged ego as well, is if you truly believe in manifestation and creation, then you should never worry that the past will repeat itself, because you're the creator, you're the manifester. You only make apple pie again if you decide to make apple pie again. But I do expect there to be fear in the air in this new moon. And that fear would be based on the past, historical memory, that sort of thing. And you must be strong, and this new winged ego must be fearless. The last aspect that I think is super fascinating is on January 31st, we had a lunar eclipse in Leo at step 11. What that meant was anyone out of integrity with their heart started to fall. So anyone not in integrity with their heart would have fallen. And basically that week we had the FBI being accused of stuff, Trump being accused of stuff, Congress, all sorts of people not in their hearts, basically being called on it by society. In this new moon on Sunday, the North Node is conjoining 11 degrees, the spot where that lunar eclipse happened, which basically means this new moon, this creation of a winged ego, is the official response to the lunar eclipse that happened in January. What it means is it is the moment where you make it right. So even if you were a person that wasn't in your heart and wasn't in integrity of your heart on January 31st, this is your opportunity to make it right, which means whatever actions you take, whatever direction you take, whatever motives you subscribe to, you must include integrity of the heart. In other words, if your heart isn't in love with what you're about to do, you ought not do it. End of story. So that old story of like, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, stop right there. If something's going to hurt you more than it hurts the person, you're doing the wrong thing. And that's according to the architecture of incarnation, in my opinion, our spirituality. Now, the last thing I will say, and then I'm going to go into a real quick synopsis of how this affects all 12 signs, is this sun-moon conjunction, which is basically our heart, the sun, and our emotions, the moon, shaking hands and making an agreement. This is where we're going. It's at step 26, which means we are committing. You probably are committing to like something minor in your life that represents big change overall. So I find that most of the most powerful new moons are very, very quiet, and the actual thing that you change is very, very small. That's what I usually find. But it has huge consequences because it sets a huge precedent. But the sun and moon are also conjoining Uranus. And Uranus is basically the energy that says forever and ever and ever. Uranus is the never-ending expression of God to always go higher. That's what Uranus is, the force that always goes higher. So if you want to get in a theoretical conversation, it's like, what pushed human evolution? Uranus. It's always Uranus. Uranus is this energy force of consciousness that we will always awaken and we always go higher. What's interesting about this new moon is you're not just committing to the new winged ego. With the sun and moon conjoining Uranus, you're committing to forever and forever, evolving and changing and growing from that point. It is not a static Republican sort of like, I'm going to hold on to these values. It is, I will carry out these values and learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow. And that these values may one day become something entirely different. And that's okay if it's a heartfelt evolution from where we began and where we made these promises. So I think this is, in my opinion, the last moment of 2018 where we're focused completely on our inner world. From this moment forward, we're going to see the outer world start to reflect all these people's inner world changes. And some people have opted to stay with the old grounded ego. They've added superlatives to make it stronger and faster and more armored. And, you know, their takeaway was they weren't strong enough. They weren't fighting hard enough. They weren't protecting enough. They didn't have big enough bombs and big enough weapons. And we're going to see that there's this, you know, it's not CNN and NBC and Fox is the way we're kind of being told things are divided by conservative and by liberal. The divide is really, and I think the divide happens in both of the Republican and Democrat parties, both in the sides that we have. The divide is, are you with the winged ego, which is looking for a win-win scenario, or are you going to be on the team of the win-lose scenario? Those are the two teams. And I think you'll find both the team members on both sides, which means everything is going to get scrambled like eggs. Now, that said, we're almost at an hour. I just want to quickly kind of tell each of the 12 signs what I feel you are launching. Aries is launching a new character. So you are committing to the actions that you take. That's what you're committing to, that you want win-win actions moving forward. Taurus is committing to a new spiritual mission. That's your mission on earth is win-win. And win-win means that you win, Taurus, and other people win too, by the way. I think a lot of times people forget the self in the win-win. If you're being selfless, still the old ego. Sacrifice is part of the old ego. If somebody loses, somebody goes without, it's the old ego. You haven't evolved. Win-win is the new ego. So Tauruses are on a new soul mission, which means, what does that mean? I mean, it's very difficult to kind of transcribe in practical terms. It just means that the essence of what you are doing, your spiritual, is now on this win-win fashion. There's no more losing. Geminis, they're launching a new social reputation, a new way of behaving in the world, a new way of being seen in the world, a new way of being known in the world. And this new way should be win-win. Cancers, they're actually launching a new career, new legacy. I think Cancers really suffered from win-lose in the past, where they would nurture everyone and they would end up losing. They would nurture everyone, they would end up losing. And this happened at home and this happened at work, both. It happened everywhere. So Cancers are launching a new win-win future. Leos are launching a win-win life purpose. So what life is really about. And I have to say, many Leos have not thought about if the other people win. Leos are very much making sure that they get what their heart wants and making sure that they attract what their heart wants. But have they really thought about the audience winning and the other people winning? I don't know. I think you're going to see a big divide in Leos because a lot of Leos are stuck in the old ego from what I can tell. I have a Leo rising, so I'm talking to myself here, by the way. Virgos, they are creating win-win boundaries. So Virgos have been pretty much all or nothing with their boundaries. And most of the time, Virgos lose. So they quite often was on the nothing side of that all or nothing. But now when they strike a balance and they strike, you know, I know a lot of Virgos, for instance, who got mad at me, just wrote me off, never talked to me again. It's like, that's a solution, right? Like that's win-lose for both of us. But they've had a lot of all or nothing boundaries. And I think Virgos now are creating win-win boundaries. Libras are creating win-win with themselves. So, and that's really where it is. Libras will say it has to do with relationships, but it's the way they are treating themselves is either win-lose or lose-win. Okay, there are Libras out there who lose and the people they're with win. There's a lot of manipulative, high-level Libras who make it look like it's about you, but they're actually winning. So I've met dark Libras. They exist. Now Libras are creating a new relationship where they're going to win and their partner wins. Scorpios. Scorpios are creating win-win in their daily lifestyle. So Scorpios usually score the touchdown, run the carpool, end up being the hero in the moment for people, and they get nothing. And that's by their own design. So Scorpios are launching a win-win in the moment, win-win at work, win-win with their health, win-win with their body. Sagittariuses. Sagittarius are doing a win-win scenario with their heart. And it's funny, I know a lot of Sagittarius who have been involved in relationships where they have been like this romantic soldier, always there, very Romeo and Juliet, and they end up losing what their heart wants. And they end up thinking for the rest of their life how they lost that person and how horrible it is. So they're now moving to a win-win scenario with love, that their heart is satisfied and the person that they're chasing after. And they do like to chase after too. Capricorns. Capricorns are learning a new win-win with their emotions. And that's actually been why some Capricorns have been dark. Okay. And I'm not saying this about Capricorns, but Capricorn is control. So a lot of times you'll find someone who's abused control is a Capricorn a lot of times. And I'm not saying they're born to be that way, just the opposite. What's behind that? What's behind that is the Capricorn is deathly afraid of the feelings involved. And so they only know this win-lose scenario. Either they're going to feel good and someone's going to feel bad, or they're going to feel bad and someone's going to feel good. That's how Capricorns were processing it. But the new Capricorn foundation root chakra is, I'm going to feel good and the people I'm doing business are going to feel good. I'm going to feel good and the people I'm ruling are going to feel good. We're going to create win-win. Both parties are going to feel good. And by the way, Capricorn, if they end up forget the money, forget the deal, forget the fine print. If both parties walk away feeling good, you did your job. Okay, so it doesn't always have to come down to actual control measures. Aquariuses are really stepping up to the seeds of Aquarius in that they're creating a new mental attitude of win-win. Aquariuses are very humanitarian. They have Age of Aquarius kind of ideals, but they have still kind of gone about the way these things happen as far as the new age needs to win and the old age needs to lose. So even though they have gone for humanitarian goals, it has still come from this idea that the bad guys are going to lose. The bad guys have to win too in the Age of Aquarius. That's what the lines are. Both sides win. And I know it's a complicated problem, but that's why you're on the Earth, Aquarius, is to figure it out. And then Pisces, they're going to learn a win-win when it comes to manifestation. So Pisces have tended to either be extremely giving, like give away the shirt on their back, or I know a lot of Pisces who will show up at your house, eat everything you have in the fridge, and sleep with your wife. You know what I mean? And that's a past life memory, by the way. But the point is that when it comes to manifestation, Pisces have been one fish or the other. They haven't manifested win-win scenarios where they get to get paid, and it also does a positive service to others too. So they're moving into the win-win ego when it comes to manifestation. So my advice is to meditate. And before you go to bed on Sunday, write down on a piece of paper what it is you commit to. That's what I advise. And step 26 is what feels right. And the 6 is the path of least resistance. So the thermometer as to whether or not, you don't have to think in terms of win-win, because if it feels right and there's no resistance, it will be win-win. That's part of the architecture of incarnation. It's built into God's system here. So you can look in the terms of win-win, or you can look completely within and say, I'm committing to what feels right and has little resistance inside of me and little resistance outside of me. That's what I'm committing to. And this is an approach. This is an attitude. This is an action engineering, that you are engineering the way you're going to take action. You're creating the principles. You're creating the root intention. And I think at Mercury at step 4 and the sun at step 26 with the moon and Uranus at 28, you are literally A to Z rewriting your ego. All right, my friends. Well, it has been such a pleasure to be of soul service. I have to say, my ascension symptoms went totally away once I talked to Julie and found out that she had them too. So I feel